Resuming at 3 for 29, Queensland adopted the attitude that attack is the best form of defence, and Ian Healy took toll of overnight sensation Wayne Holsworth's first over, smashing him for 8 runs. Healy continued to dominate the bowling, this time with a pull shot to the fence. New South Wales were minus Mike Whitney, a forlorn character in the stands, and he watched on as his teammates grasped 3 chances in the first 90 minutes. Story played the sheet anchor but occasionally cut loose. A quarter of an hour before lunch, Mark Waugh got the breakthrough the Blues were looking for as Healy, while on the attack, got an edge to a hook shot and was caught behind by Emery for a well-compiled 66. 2 balls later, with the score still on 117, Story was out for 30, picked up in the gully by Bayliss off the bowling of O'Neill. Then a fine partnership between Alan Border and Greg Ritchie steered Queensland towards first innings points. The Australian captain was in an aggressive mood, hammering anything loose to the boundary. It didn't matter if it was off the back foot or a glorious cover drive off the front. He continually rattled the pickets to race to 34. But with the score on 183, Holsworth was reintroduced to the attack and had Border caught behind, and the Maroons had lost their 6th wicket. Ritchie went on the rampage and smashed Taylor for 4. With first innings points in sight, Ritchie tried to repeat the shot, but Trevor Bayliss snared a sensational catch, and Ritchie was on the way back to the pavilion after making 42. But the inevitable happened as Craig McDermott hit the shot that gave the Northerners the points in the first innings.
Congratulations, 157 for that section.
The Department of Corrective Services has expressed its intention to purchase 2 properties along the Pacific Highway at Palmdale for the new $1 million centre. At present, the land is owned by the Roads and Traffic Authority and will be transferred to the Department of Corrective Services for only $300,000. Corrective Services Minister Michael Yabsley says the 1 hectare site has raised little community objection.
Well, bearing in mind that they are minor offenders, they are very much minimum security institutions. There is a basic perimeter fence, but for the most part I would hope that the offenders will actually be out in the community. It's important to bear in mind they're considered to be people who represent no threat to the community. The sorts of offences that we're talking about would be minor property offences, perhaps drink drive offenders, and so that gives you an idea that we're not talking about hardened criminals as such.
The new centre will hold only 50 detainees, but Mr Yabsley says only those sentenced late next year will be eligible.
Well, I think that'll satisfy the immediate requirements for the courts in the local area, and then of course if in a few years' time we need to expand that, then having acquired the site, then that's always something that can happen, but certainly for the foreseeable future, providing 50 places will be adequate.
However, before any further work can go ahead with the project, the land must be rezoned by Wyong Council. A council official today said that no further work had been lodged with the council, but when it was, it would be rushed through as a matter of urgency. Darren Curtis for NBN News. Gleaming chrome, black leather and a powerful roar. Meet the Road and Traffic Authority's latest weapon in its bid to try and cut the road toll and improve rider education. The West Gosford Motor Registry is the first office in the state to have rider training facilities designed into its layout. 12 new cycles have been commissioned at West Gosford, and from February instructors will begin testing learner riders as they apply for their permit. The instructor will treat the applicant as a complete novice and run through the basics of the machine and explain its features before the bike is even started. The applicant will then be put through a series of moving tests involving slow riding, braking, turning and street survival after approximately 6 hours of tuition over a number of days. Bike manufacturers have got behind the scheme, supplying a number of bike styles to give learners the opportunity to experience all kinds of riding. Road and Traffic Authority Rider Training Manager David Hill says the scheme cannot officially begin until February, when new instructors graduate. However, the facility will be available to the public.
The idea is for commercial and community riding organisations to offer the training under a contract from us, and we see it as a little growth industry, and in fact this area here will be available for the next 6 months for commercial and community riding schools to use to build up their experience before we bring the full program in on the Central Coast.
The first 3 days of the Shield match saw the Queenslanders dominate, picking up first innings points and setting up a relatively easy target on the last day. But that's where their problems set in. By lunch, the Maroons had floundered to 5 for 60. A top order collapse saw Smart, Border and Trimble not getting out of single figures. The Queenslanders had seemed surprised by some of the decisions of umpire Graham Reid, and when Richie was caught Emery bowled war for 7, the Queensland skipper stood his ground and looked back at the umpire in disbelief. According to John Wood from the New South Wales Cricket Association, Richie later said he would be protesting in the strongest possible way.
I'm not talking to any press. Go and talk to the Queensland.
Leaving for a flight to Sydney this morning, the Queenslanders would not comment on the umpiring, only to say an official complaint had been lodged. Trainer Richie Robinson said the game was finished and the team was looking forward to the next one. President of the Newcastle Cricket Association, Tom Locker, said the match had been a great success. He said the umpiring controversy had taken none of the shine from an excellent match.
The umpire can't please the bowler and he can't please the batsman. And I think maybe on reflection, it was a game which, despite all the problems, which the people of Newcastle will remember for a long time.
About 200 people working for the National Sea Safety Centre in Canberra will be needed when the Australian Maritime Safety Authority formally goes into operation in Newcastle. Up to half of those are reluctant to leave their Canberra homes. Many have sought union backing to stay put. Member for Newcastle, Alan Morris, says he can't see why they shouldn't stay.
Sufficient of the key personnel that are required for the transition are in fact happy to move up here. So the kernel group that one would need, we think will be successfully transferred.
And how would you make up the remainder?
Well, we'd employ locally.
Tenders for the new AMSA headquarters to be built in Newcastle will be called within weeks, but the service won't be fully operational for about a year. The government has plenty of time to negotiate transfer packages with reluctant public servants. Mr Morris says he believes there won't be too many job vacancies to fill, and those who don't move will remain with the Transport Department in Canberra.
I mean, the union we're talking about, that was when public, has about a dozen or so of the 200 people involved. So it isn't exactly a major player, and we think it's doing a bit of positioning for itself. But this was all known before the Cabinet decision of last week. Cabinet made the decision for Newcastle with the knowledge that some staff would find it difficult or weren't happy about moving. So if there was any real doubt, it wouldn't have gone through Cabinet.
John Farnham is riding the crest of a wave of popularity which is showing no signs of slowing. And tonight the International Sports Centre will echo to the strains of what surely must now be considered the singing voice of Australia. The concert will be the biggest event of its kind ever staged in Newcastle, 20,000 watts of high-fidelity sound in the largest acoustic big top in Australia. It cost more than $20,000 to set up the enormous tent, but after today's torrential falls, there was no doubt the gamble had paid big dividends.
It won't matter what the weather presents, we'll be able to perform an excellent show tonight.
The tent went up yesterday, and while the early arrivals paid for their prime seats with a damp afternoon, they were at least assured of dry ground once inside. As for the man himself, rain or no rain, he says he enjoys singing in tents.
I've got to say that working in the tent, and this is a serious tent, it's been a whole different atmosphere. It's kind of outdoor-indoor, and it has an atmosphere that you can't get inside, and an atmosphere that doesn't happen completely outside. So we got the best of both worlds. It's terrific.
And
Excuse me, I've got to wave. I love my work.
What's it like to be riding on the crest of a wave like you are now?
What do you reckon? I'm having a lovely time. I'm enjoying it more now than I ever have. I mean, I started when I was 17. I've had a fair amount of success, and I've had my down times, and I've had some success. I sort of make the analogy that I got 2 bites of the cherry and got to spit out the pip.
6,000 tickets have been sold so far, 3,000 more are expected to go at the door. Seating for 2,000 has also been provided. The concert starts in an hour and a half.
With a federal election just around the corner, it was perhaps very appropriate that Paul Keating's one and only stopover this afternoon turned out to be a brief lesson in spinning yarns. Rutherford's National Textiles plant was selected as the showpiece for Hunter Industry, with management planning an extensive tour of the factory's workings and the chance for workers to meet face-to-face with Mr Keating. But a late arrival by the official party turned that into something resembling a Formula One Grand Prix, with the treasurer setting a rattling pace. There was none of the expected palm pressing. Instead, Mr Keating honed his attention on the plant's workings, an interest he later claimed had put Hunter Industry back on track. On the interest rate issue, Mr Keating remained unwavering on his stand that they aren't on the way down yet.
Well, interest rates at the moment are slowing the growth of imports down. Unless that happens, we would have a much harder time in Australia than we're having at the moment. But they are succeeding in slowing the economy down. When we feel they have succeeded enough, well, then interest rates will start to subside.
Well, Mr Keating, the question has to be asked. You're here at an Australian textile factory. The suit you're wearing, is it Australian made?
No, but it's got Australian wool. It's 100% Australian wool.
KidSafe is a word soon to become familiar in the building industry, with the Newcastle Master Builders Association leading New South Wales in promoting childproof home safety features.
All the house builders of the NBA have made a commitment to promote KidSafe, and they'll be offering KidSafe kits and packages to all their clients that they're dealing with.
Today, the official opening of the association's KidSafe exhibition home at Charlestown, with Housing Minister Joe Shipp awarding the seal of the Child Accident Prevention Foundation. At first glance, the KidSafe home looks much like any other, but look closer and you'll find a host of features designed to make the home a child-friendly place. Kitchen and bathroom cupboards are fitted with childproof safety catches. Low-level windows are shatterproof. Power points are designed to prevent accidental electrocution. And to prevent nasty burns, hot water is controlled by spring-loaded taps.
There are a few hidden features. One of them is the thermostatic mixing valve for the hot water system. And what this means is that if a young child does turn on a hot water tap, they can't get scalded or burnt by it because it's preset to 38 degrees centigrade instead of 70. If the water was 70 degrees centigrade, 1 second could cause a major burn on a child's arm.
Most of the KidSafe features are readily available and can be installed in existing houses. Products can be identified by the distinctive KidSafe logo. And the cost? Not much, say safety experts, when a child's life may be saved. Leslie Robinson, NBN News.
Taiwan is overcrowded, polluted and short of natural resources. It is also one of the richest economies in the world, with almost no unemployment and booming industries. And that makes it very attractive to other countries, including Australia.
I was very impressed by the opportunities for Taiwan to invest in Australia and the willingness of them to do so. They're very keen. They've got a lot of money in Taiwan. The country has been extremely successful in recent years.
David Boyd was part of a delegation including Deputy Premier Wal Murray, which has just returned from a brief visit to Taiwan. While there, they talked with government and industry leaders about the potential of Taiwanese investments and joint venture opportunities for Australian companies. David Boyd says the Taiwanese were encouraging, but they have already or will soon also receive delegations from South Australia, Victoria and Queensland. The New South Wales delegation also met with the top executives of the giant China Steel Company, which is searching the world for a place to site a $4 billion steel mill. The Hunter is near the top of the list.
Well, certainly they gave the impression that they're still interested in Newcastle, but they specifically wouldn't tell us how they were favouring the various options.
A drop in the projected demand for steel worldwide means a decision will probably now not be made until the end of next year. Projects the size of the China Steel proposal are rare, but David Boyd is now also working on a second. Tomorrow he flies to Thailand representing Port Waratah Coal Services in a joint venture with Leighton's CRA and the Joint Coal Board. Thailand has an energy shortage, and the consortium has put together a detailed proposal to build a coal-fired power station on the country's south coast. It would be a similar size to the Bayswater plant. Armed with an introduction from Prime Minister Hawke, Mr Boyd will try to persuade the Thai Prime Minister to help fund a $3 million feasibility study. If the project does eventually get off the ground, it will be worth millions in technology exports and, even more importantly, burn 8 million tonnes of coal a year, in all probability coal supplied by Hunter Mines. Ross Hampton, NBN News.
Behind the tough exterior of tattoos, leather jackets and beards, Newcastle's motorbike enthusiasts obviously have a heart of gold.
It does something for our public image, and it helps people to see that we're not the ratbags that they all think we are.
The bikers stopped traffic along the Pacific Highway, riding from Gateshead to the city to donate hundreds of toys for Newcastle's underprivileged children. Instead of his usual transport of Dasher and Dancer, Santa got his lift with the Harley-Davidsons and BMWs. The presents were accepted by the Salvation Army on the harbour foreshore. Captain Graham Wants says the bikers' toy appeal is a gesture in the true spirit of Christmas.
It's absolutely magnificent. It's really just so wonderful to see such a group of people gathering together and being so generous and so kind towards the needy people in our society.
From grand old ladies to modest cruisers, the Royal Motor Yacht Club brought together an impressive array of vintage vessels for the 1989 Classic. Of course, a top boat won't go far without the right crew, and today that was available for a price, with fierce bidding from skippers eager to secure some well-known deckhands. Veteran sailor Albie Bergen was snatched up at $70, while Lake Macquarie Mayor Ivan Welsh commanded the princely sum of $105. It was then down to the real business of the day, with the historic yachts and cruisers setting off on a 36-kilometre course. You might call it a race with grace, since most of these vessels weren't designed with speed in mind. Money raised today goes to Camp Quality, Newcastle's holiday program for children with cancer. Leslie Robinson, NBN News. The University Choir capped off a successful season before a near-capacity crowd, mixing Christmas songs, stories and traditional carols. The audience were also expected to do their bit, with a sea of voices joining the choir in some well-known and much-loved Christmas carols.
Chiropractors Australia-wide have designated this week as Colic Awareness Week, in a bid to tell parents and the medical world that colic can be cured. Their claims are based on a study from Denmark, where 316 babies were treated by manipulation of the spine, with a reported success rate of 94%. This week, chiropractors are giving free examinations to children aged under 3 in an attempt to provide a colic-free Christmas. Why manipulation appears to work is a mystery, even to the chiropractors.
The exact mechanism is unknown, just like the exact mechanism of what colic is unknown. Undoubtedly, by improving the joint function, you're alleviating any neurological reflex and therefore improving the abdominal area.
One theory Mr. Stevenson has is that a difficult birth with resulting damage to the neck or spine could produce colic pain. Whatever the reasons, the results for some babies speak for themselves.
He's been a lot better at night. Normally he just was sleeping 3-4 hours at a time, then he'd wake up and he'd settle him down, but he'd only sleep 15 minutes, half an hour at a time. Since he's had his chiropractic treatment, he's been sleeping 7 hours and 9 hours one night. So it's been really wonderful. It's made a difference. He's a lot happier and I'm a lot happier.
And for others, there is always hope.
It's just mainly the vomiting I'm worrying about, and Fred seems to think he may be able to help that. So we've only just started the treatment, so as yet nothing has really come about, but I'm sure it will. I really have faith in it and I think it'll work.
Mr Stevenson says the use of an activator to loosen joints is quite safe.
In that particular study, there was absolutely no side effects.